Welcome to this fireside chat. My name is Errol Schweitzer, host of the Checkout podcast. We have an amazing special guest today, Montserrat Garibay, Secretary and Treasurer of the Texas AFL-CIO. Thanks for being with us today, Montserrat.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
So Montserrat, tell us, how did you get involved as a trade unionist, and what appealed to you about it?
Yeah, well, I'm not come from a union family. I came to the U.S. as an undocumented student almost 29 years ago, and I, went through the public school system, and I had an amazing ESL teacher who I just admire, and I wanted to be just like her. So I decided to become a bilingual teacher. And the first thing that my mentor teacher told me was to get involved with Education Austin, the teachers union. And that's exactly what I did. I went and signed a card and became a member of Education Austin, which is a merged local with the National Education Association and the American Federation of Teachers. So the first few years, I was just, I was teaching and taking some professional development from the union. And then I really started getting involved. The legislative session wanted to cut the program, the bilingual pre-K program for all 4-year-olds. And I called the president then and I said, hey, you need to do something about this. I'm paying my dues every day. And he said, Montserrat, you are Education Austin. You are a member. What do you want to do? And that's how I started organizing. Short story, we started a pre-K task force and we advocated for like 6 months. We talked to every school board member. We really organized. And then at the end of that summer, the superintendent and the school board members voted to have the full day pre-K program, even though the state legislators actually cut the funding. And that's when, just like these light bulbs, I had this light bulb moment in my life where I was like, oh, okay, this is how organizing works. And ever from there, I started being really involved in the political campaigns, in getting school board members elected, and then I was asked to run for vice president of Education Austin, and I won, and I did that for 5 years, representing members, filing grievances, but then really starting to really integrate what social justice unionism was all about, which I was very passionate about. I was very doing a lot of things with immigration, and it was a time where there were a lot of raids taking place in Austin, and I wanted teachers and classified employees to know that that we have tools in our toolbox to help undocumented families to have a plan. And I was able to help a lot of undocumented students that apply for their DACA permit, their deferred action for childhood arrival, so they could work, and also started helping our members become U.S. citizens through our citizenship campaign. And I did that for 5 years. I loved it. And then I was asked to run for Secretary Treasurer with the Texas AFL-CIO. And I said, well, why not, right? And I have been doing that for 3 years, really learning the different trades that are in our labor movement. The Texas AFL-CIO represents 240,000 union members throughout the state of Texas. And I've had the honor and the pleasure of getting to know what the people that work as electric union members, what do they do? The plumbers, the bricklayers, the county workers, the hotel workers. And I have been able to expand my knowledge, but at the end of the day, we all have something in common. We want to be treated with dignity and respect. And the work that we do every single day empowers our members to do that. And I've just been blessed to be part of that work.
That's amazing. Tell us a bit about the Texas AFL-CIO, its reach, its impact, its vision.
Yeah, well, the Texas AFL-CIO, like I said, it's a federation that represents all the different unions throughout the state of Texas. And we help them in different campaigns and in different capacities. We mainly help them with the political side of the campaigns. Right now, we have the 87th legislative session, and we advocate in different bills, right? Like, for instance, if the teachers are, pushing for vaccines, or they want to get better benefits and better resources for their schools, we help them in their campaigns. If the Communication Workers of America are really, for instance, right now pushing for a bill about broad access of internet for our communities. We help them with that, and we are kind of like the liaison between the legislators and the members. But we really help them organize so they can bring those stories of their members to the table. We have different campaigns. We have a racial justice campaign where we're really, with what happened with the Black Lives Matter movement in June, we really are transforming our union to be more at the table and to make sure that we are working on what's happening with the racial inequalities that are happening in our communities. We also have a climate justice campaign where we're working really hard as well. We have our women's committee. So we really are. What I love about the Texas AFL-CIO is that we have these different resources in our staff, and we're able to either help our unions, our central labor councils organize and really help them with what they need at the state, county level, and city level.
So in that regard, what does solidarity forever mean to you?
Yeah, well, solidarity forever means when someone attacks one of us, they attack all of us. And it's really standing up for every worker, whether you are undocumented, whether you have a permanent residency, whether you are LGBTQ, it doesn't matter. When someone attacks our workers, we stand with them. And a great example, at least for me, has been to see an electrician and a carpenter standing up with us when, Ken Paxton is really attacking immigrants, right? And when we're able to say, when you're attacking my brother and sister who's undocumented or who has a green card, you're attacking the labor movement. And we're standing together to show that we are together on this and that nobody is left behind.
Like you, I did not grow up in a union family, but I did grow up in a union town. I grew up in New York City. There was a lot of folks that I grew up around who were union members. I have a question. Why are there so few private sector unions in Texas and in particular Austin? But regarding the ones that are active, what sectors are they in and how do they support their members?
Yeah, so unfortunately, Texas is a right to work for free, right? Right to work for less, actually. And that has been, that's one of the big problems, right? We have businesses who are really strong and who really intimidate their workers to organize. So that's one of the big issues that is happening. We see that in a lot of big companies. We have Amazon. We have just different companies that don't understand that by treating their workers right, they would have so much productivity as well, right? They're just getting their banks richer, but not the workers. And we do have you would think that here in Austin you would have more unions, and we are slowly, but trying to organize more workers. But there's a lot of the laws just to even organize are really, really difficult to do that. There's the intimidation that goes on between the employers and the employees. It's very bad. Also, I think there's a lot of race and class issue of workers, and why they are they're not. Many times people don't think that just because I speak Spanish, I won't be able to organize or I won't know my rights, right? And that's something that we see every single day with different workers. For instance, Unite here tried to organize a bunch of people in a hotel in Houston, and the employers were like, oh, they make these people sign these cards, thinking that we don't know what organizing is all about and why we want to be treated with dignity and respect, right? So I think that there's a lot of that, the suppression of people unionizing because people are scared, but the employers have also have not been friendly to workers.
Yeah, and that exploitation, the other side of that is that sort of white paternalism where they assume you don't know what you're doing when you want to organize, right? So let's talk a bit about COVID-19. How has COVID-19 impacted essential workers and their families in Texas, particularly in the service, retail, supply chain sectors that have been, really carrying the burden of keeping everybody fed and alive, to the extent that they've also been really harmful to a lot of those workers. So help us out with that.
Yeah, COVID-19 has really highlighted the fact that many of the workers have always been invisible in our communities, right? And now with COVID-19, it's all of a sudden like, oh, we have poultry workers and farm workers who don't have enough protective masks and PPE. Oh, all of a sudden he's like, oh, we have, the nurses, or we have the people that carry different products throughout our country that are important, right? And one of the things that we keep hearing, when COVID-19 started happening, I talked to one of our members from the International Alliance of Electrical Stage Employees here in Austin. They were getting ready to do South by Southwest. They were super excited, and then COVID-19 happened. South by Southwest got canceled, and I talked to one of our members, and he said, I got paid. I was going to work the whole month, and I got paid 4 hours. And now I don't know what I'm gonna do with my rent. I'm gonna have to go back to live with my parents. And the IATSE, that's the union. Many of them are homeless. Many of them try to apply for the unemployment insurance, unemployment benefits, and they had a really hard time even trying to go through the application, because the system that the Texas has is the 1980 system, who is really, really old, and it just took forever. We had the EMS workers and the health workers saying we are burnout. We're depressed because there's just so much need, and a lot of us are getting sick. We don't have the PPE, and it's just been detrimental for them. The hotel workers as well. I talked to Ms. Padilla just yesterday about the fact that she works in a hotel, and she was doing catering, all the hotel food and catering for banquets. And she said, I don't have a job. She has 7 people in her family. She was like, I'm putting everything in my credit card. I don't know what I'm going to do. I just know that I don't have a job. I'm going to food banks every week, and it's really, they have to decide whether they have to go to work, like construction workers. I talked to a lot of them, and they're also sharing of they don't have health insurance. They don't have enough PPE to wear, and they really have to decide what they might be the only ones working in their household, and they have to decide, okay, I feel sick, but I really need that paycheck so I can pay for the basic things in our communities. That has been really heartbreaking, but it also tells us the fact that, when we see Governor Abbott having this task force of getting people back to work with COVID, and then you see the people that are in those tables and you don't see any workers. It's outrageous, because at the end of the day, if we're not at the table, we're on the menu, right? And you have workers who are saying, hey, we don't have access to rapid testing, or we don't have access to the vaccine. It has really exemplified the fact that there are many legislators and there are many companies who think that workers are disposable. And, that is outrageous, but we're fighting back every single day.
Speaking of menus, if Texas AFL was writing the menu, what policy levers would be implemented to actually protect Texas workers, particularly in retail, service sector, supply chains like OSHA, workers' comp? Tell us a bit about the PRO Act, stuff like that. I'm curious what you guys have if you were to write the menu.
Yeah. Well, in the previous presidential administration, it was a total chaos, right? We saw that OSHA, yes, they had these regulations that they were supposed to go by, and they had zero impact in our communities. They really didn't follow up with what they had written. It was pretty much like a show, to be honest, right? But with this administration, we are seeing that, well, first of all, as the AFL-CIO, we are pushing for the PRO Act, and the PRO Act is having basic workplace improvements and really against like the illegal employer retaliation. They want to make sure that the PRO Act really wants to have proper classification of workers, and that piece of legislature would be really helpful for all workers, no matter where they live, especially here in Texas. Would be something that would be really something totally different for our members. We have President Biden just is pushing for the Buy America bill, which is a really important bill, right? When we talk about NAFTA and how NAFTA has really hurt our communities, I had the opportunity to go to Matamoros, and I saw how little these workers get paid. In Chicago, they closed down the Nabisco plant where they make Oreo cookies, and they moved it to Monterrey, and the people there are getting paid less than $2. And it's outrageous because they closed this plant in Chicago, where actually the materials that they were using to make the cookies gave cancer to a lot of workers. So they had a big dispute going on that. And when we went to Matamoros and talked to some of those workers that work in Nabisco, we asked them, and they were like, what? They didn't know, right? So we see this every single time, that workers are not treated with respect. But in terms of the Buy America, we've seen all these masks and all these masks are being made in China, where we actually have some companies here who are making them here in the United States by people in the United States, and people are not buying them. So we need to make sure that we have more productions. The production is made here with labor from our communities, and we need to make sure that we buy them as well. So in terms of OSHA, we have the new Secretary of Labor. We're really excited because it's somebody that has a labor experience, and it's that's why I know that like voting is so important. We're able to see that when we organize for someone to really recognize the power of the labor movement, we're seeing that right now, and we're very hopeful on the different workers' rights and different things that are going to help our communities and just our workers.
So COVID-19 has really exposed some of the rottenness in our food system in particular. How is Texas AFL-CIO preparing for the next crises, the impacts of climate change, particularly keeping in mind the mobilization for a Green New Deal and a just transition for working people?
Yes, so that's a really, it's not an easy topic for some of our unions, but we are also very cognizant that we need to be at the table again and not the menu. The reality is that climate change is real. We have a lot of our members who work in refineries in Houston, and with the hurricane happening and so many people losing their homes during the hurricanes and just the different environmental things that are happening, we know we have a responsibility as a labor movement to drive the agenda in terms of what is it that we want to see in terms of climate change and the policies that are going to take place. So we started our task force of climate jobs, and we have about 20 something union members from different unions where we're sitting down and we're really looking at the issues on how we can be part of it, right? Whether it's with the legislative session in passing some bills. At the end of the day, we know this. We know that green jobs they're gonna start happening, right? The solar panels and all of that, it's happening. But we need to make sure that those green jobs are union jobs as well. That we gotta make sure that they have benefits for members, that they are well-paying jobs, because at the end of the day, we know that if union members are working hard and are being part of those discussions, they're gonna be able to have better productivity.
We have a couple questions from the audience that look really cool. First one is, what are the greatest union job opportunities in food, especially in this context that we're talking about of a transition to a greener economy?
So we have the United Farm UFCW. It's a great union who they're really organizing really good in terms of helping or really empowering union members to have a voice and to be at the table in terms of what is it that they want to see in terms of their rights, right? In different areas, the steel workers, you'd be surprised, they're also organizing in different areas, not just like the steel in the steel productivity. They work in different areas as well. OPIU as well, they are really organizing in different areas. And I think we're in a really important moment in our history where union members are really rolling up their sleeves and seeing the power of being at the table and really driving those policies and being advocating for their members.
We have another question from the audience that speaks to some of the tactics that can be used to force change in the system. The question is, when Biden gets rid of the right to work law, how soon will we organize strikes?
Well, I think that's a great question. Yes, the strikes are really important, and it's a really important piece of organizing. But also, I think it needs to be education is really important, and really learning about our past, and really learning and educating others about the power of the unions is really important. And also, how do you collaborate with the unions? Collaborate with other organizations. Like in New York, you see that all the time, and how powerful they are. You see it with the Chicago teachers unions, how powerful they are, how they have been organizing, and they create this intersectionality where a lot of different people are working together. And I think being able to do that more is as important as the strikes. But it's not gonna be like, okay, got rid of right at work, now let's all do strikes. I think it needs to be strategic. We need to change the minds and hearts of many people to join the movement, and it's something that is very hopeful that we're starting to see in different areas.
Yeah, speaking of strategy, what is the Fair Shot for Texas Workers campaign?
Yeah, so
about?
our First Shot agenda is we have different points of our First Shot agenda, right? We want to make sure that state and employees have good salaries and good benefits and good healthcare. That's extremely important. We are working with making sure that the different trades have licensing, they have good apprenticeship programs. We're making sure that we have fully funded public schools, expanding broadband access, justice for all. What does that mean with our racial justice work that we're doing? Just because I'm brown, I don't have, we need to make sure that those laws are fair for our communities of color, especially. It's an agenda that we have of different points. We have our UNCO, which is our United Legislative Labor Committee, where we have all these different unions. We meet every day during the legislative session, and they're the ones that drive our agenda for the legislative session. So it's not just Rick, the president, and I. No, it's a group of union members who decide where we're going to go with the bills that are taking place. And also a big thing about it is the Fair Shot agenda we came up with it by, number one, organizing, talking to our members, seeing what are our hopes and dreams in a way, and then we're organizing and pushing for them to make sure that our voices are at the table.
So if we were to fast forward 5 years, where would you like to see Texas AFL-CIO, but also working class people in Texas? What would you like to see changed? What would you like to see different?
Well, that's a big question. Well, I want us to be at the table with our legislative campaigns. We have our Ruth Ellinger School where we are teaching it's a year-long campaign where we identify members who are younger. We're giving them the resources that they need. We teach them about the labor movement, about running for office, and them being at the table and inspiring others and being bold and courageous in taking stands of where we need to go. I see in 5 years from now, I see that in a movement. I see a movement full of hope, full of bravery, fighting for the working people of Texas, so we can be at the table and running the state, so we can be treated with dignity and respect.
It's amazing to hear and visualize that with what you're saying. We're almost at a close here, Montserrat. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything else you want to share, especially on this intersection of food and labor that we're talking about today?
Yeah, being in the labor movement personally has transformed my life and has given me a voice that I didn't know I had. And I leave you with this. There's a quote that I love, and I take it's in my heart. And it's from Margaret Mead, and it says, "Never doubt that a small, thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world. In fact, it is the only thing that ever has." And in this moment of time, I feel that my sisters and brothers in the labor movement are committed to justice, and are committed to equality. And that is what the power of the labor movement. I'm hopeful about it, and I know that we're gonna do big things in the next 5 years because we know how to organize and we believe in justice.
Montserrat Garibay, Secretary Treasurer of the Texas AFL-CIO. It has been my absolute pleasure to spend this time with you today.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
This is Errol Schweitzer with the Checkout Podcast, wrapping up this fireside chat for the Conference on Food Resilience, Access, and Equity. Thank you all.
Great job, you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Errol. Thank you.
Thank you, Montserrat. That was amazing. I kind of got a little verklempt there too when you were talking.
We're going to have to move fast because this video is only 20 seconds and we got to get the next panelist up. But thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
We're done.
Thank you. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you, Joy.
I think that there's also a slide screen too. I don't know how long you put the slides.
Yes, there is.
Yeah. So you have a little bit more time. I'll go off. I just run right.
It's only 20 seconds.
It's only 20 seconds. Slides just kidding. Okay, I'm disappearing.
So 20 seconds. All right, everyone. So just really quickly, you just have that little. Well, Joy knows how it works. So never mind. So
Joy's
video is
professional
starting.
now.
Y'all are starting in 5 seconds.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the talk between Errol and Montserrat. That was truly, truly amazing. You're back with me with Joy. And we're going to have a wonderful conversation with two of my new favorite people. I'm here with Elsa Underwood and Justin Noakes at HEB. I'm got a little bit of feedback. We're going to hold on a second. If anybody's got some other windows, we might ask them to close them. Hold on one second, guys. That's not me. Okay, that's a bit better. Thank you, everybody. So I was just saying, I'm here with Elsa Underwood and Justin Noakes of our friendly, everybody loves it, HEB. I thank you guys for joining us. We're going to talk about corporation and community, my two favorite C's. And it's an interesting two C's because those are two C's that can often be in tension. And I think you guys and the company that you represent, that brand that you represent, has done something spectacular. And that is often say that for you all, it's not intention. It is part of who you are, and it's part of that corporate DNA. Last year at the beginning of the pandemic, there was this strange rush on toilet tissue. And, we're all sitting around going, what is going on with toilet tissue, people? Not understanding that. And everybody was like, what is with toilet tissue and bleach? I don't know what's with toilet tissue and bleach. But as a product person myself, I was amazed at not what was flying off shelves, which was odd. You can't predict randomness. But I was amazed at what was still on the shelves. And I was like, who's doing that? And how is that stuff still getting in? And they've still got it. And who's doing that work? And then I saw an article. And that's when I said, ooh, who is Justin Noakes? And then I said, who is sourcing? Ooh, that's Elsa Underwood, Jody. I need to know. And then discover you two. So here we are. So I just quickly, you guys want to, if you don't mind, you want to introduce yourselves individually. If you want to, I'll start with you, Elsa, and then go to you, Justin. And just, I know who you guys are, and you're just sort of where you fit in the HEB story, but you want to introduce yourselves individually. And Elsa, you want to start?
Sure, absolutely. So yes, I'm Elsa Underwood. I have worked with HEB actually 2 rounds. This latest round has been almost 2 years, but previous to that was 15. And then even previous to that was working kind of peripherally around HEB. So it's basically been kind of my entire career in the food industry, food business, and kind of really done lots of different things, mostly around procurement and always around food. So I've done marketing, label design. I worked in our private label area for a while, doing product development, things like that. I then had the pleasure of, I was the ice cream buyer, among other categories, for about 10 years. That was obviously a lot of fun. And then, so now I am in our sourcing department. So, we like to say that our sourcing is, everywhere from all across the world, as well as in our own backyard.
Right.
So, so that's, so the being in the food business has been, that's just sort of who I am. It's I've really not ever done anything else. So that's my story.
Yeah. And Justin, can we hear you now?
me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. So my name is Justin Noakes. I've been with HEB for 26 years this year, 26 great years. And the last 15 years, I've been doing emergency response along with Elsa. Elsa and I have worked together for quite a while now. And Elsa and I were Elsa was the ice lady. So I always know Elsa as the ice lady. So at HEB, that's a term of endearment, that's for sure. So we're very blessed to have such an amazing company and work for such a great organization. And, in this role, I'm responsible for business continuity and disaster response and everything that goes bump in the night. So glad to be part of the conference today. And thank you so much for having us.
No, thank you guys for being here. And I think you answered sort of my first question, just sort of how do you guys relate to each other, right? If there's a preparedness and then there's the goods of preparedness. So how do you guys sort of work together?
I think it's, one of the great things about HEB is we're a very integrated company. And so as part of emergency response, my job is really pretty straightforward. It's to help Elsa be successful and to help some of our other business, actually all of our other businesses be successful. So anytime that there's a disaster, all of the HEB family comes together and works together really to make sure that, our stores are taken care of and our partners are safe and sound and we can continue to support our community. So it's a very intertwined operation and one that I think is a really good business model. So I think that's a good start.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think actually just the other day I was on a call and somebody mentioned the word scrappy, and HEB is definitely us. We are very lean. We're not a company that has a ton of layers. So the communication that comes from Justin and his team, it's almost real time as it gets out to the rest of the organization. So I think we're all pretty lockstep. In that communication. So it's super collaborative kind of environment. Even now that when we're not even in the office together, it still seems kind of very family oriented, and especially when it comes to when things don't go so well. So anytime that things don't go well, it's like a miracle how quickly everybody sort of gets focused and starts working together. So,
but that means then, because you're this is a full-time role, right? This is not come together strike force, right? These are full-time roles, which suggests, you've got a book. You've got a set of plans that means something, right? You prepare employees, you have ways of taking care of employees, you have some standard operating procedures, you have these, how do you prepare a store, right? How do you, you have some things that you have structured, right? How do you prepare a supply chain? How do you, I assume these things, right? And me coming from a corporate background, that's what I would expect, right?
Yeah, we obviously do have, disaster response plans, and really it's an ongoing development of those plans based on our experiences. And, as Elsa indicated, we work together continuously to continue to update those plans. And really, I think plans is a good starting point, but what happens in something like COVID, it's a continuous evolvement. And some of the ways I think that we're most successful is that we integrate those emergency plans into the daily operational side of the business. And so part of our goal at HEB is for every department, organization, or team to be as resilient as absolutely possible. And so we try to not be just a add-on part of the company. We want to be integrated into your daily operations. And that way, whenever something does happen, it's not a here comes the cavalry in to save the day. It's a integrated response. And honestly, a lot of our departments at HEB are already in that mentality of resiliency. Yeah. So it enables them to respond quicker. They're enabled to be successful. They're enabled to take care of their employee, and they're enabled to take care of their customer, which then gives them a really sense of ability to move forward during a disaster, whether it be an everyday disaster or whether it be something as significant as COVID. So I think it's kind of a mentality of resiliency at HEB versus a additional program that maybe comes in and helps whenever something does happen, if that makes sense.
Right. So I mean, that's a total mindset, right? I mean, and that certainly has to give a sense of, I don't totally mean autonomy, but departments already know how to act, right?
That's right.
They already have a sense of, here's what we do under these different kinds of circumstances, right? Autonomy, independence, so what does that mean for, let's talk about, what does that mean for community? So one of the things that I found amazing in that vein was, I know that in a particular, think of a particular store, that we see store managers or departments have the ability to engage the community in different ways. They already sort of have allowances, or not only like an allowance, but they have a way that they engage their local community. They may have budgets or different kinds of things they do to talk to people or to engage their communities. Is that something that's already sort of written or sort of given to them? We already know that we're part of the community, and so we give you a certain set of tools to be able to engage community every day?
Yeah, so it was, it's interesting when Justin was talking about how, this our idea of emergency preparedness really is just sort of, it isn't just a one-off. And I think that the big, and this is kind of relates back to kind of the really big lesson that I learned throughout this whole COVID thing. Because obviously, we've had lots of people ask, like, what were the lessons? How do you help? How can you help other people? And so, I really did sit down and kind of think about what are those lessons. And the big thing to me was that at HEB, on great days, we have what we call our core values, right? So we have those embedded in our every single day activity. So when things are going great, there's our core values. When things are not going great, there's still the same core values. And the core values are all around our partners, making sure that our partners are, in this case, partners are safe, right? That was, and that was something that, it seems like this is a very interesting kind of perspective. A lot of people enjoy hearing this, but throughout, as you can imagine, the number of meetings that we had, you can only imagine how many there were. And every single one of them started with, are our partners safe? Like every single one. And that's what everybody talked about. Like that was just absolutely top of mind, is our partners. So our partners are absolutely our core value. Obviously,
and of course, that's our first question right now. And folks do feel free to toss Q&A, and we'll try to get to those. And just, you want to go ahead and address just sort of how you guys address that for your work for workers, partners in virus.
Yeah, so I can touch on it, but really Justin probably can give a little bit more. But I for us, again, it was especially for something like this where our partners were really kind of in the thick of, physically were in the thick of this particular situation. And so, we were one of the first companies that took a lot of the steps that now we almost kind of take for granted and we kind of forget. HEB was at the very beginning of that. And I do remember getting a lot of people saying, what are y'all doing? Wait a minute. Why are you doing these different things? Whether it was, metering the customers, limiting our store hours, a lot of the things we were sort of at the forefront, and it was difficult to do those at the very beginning. Justin, I'm sure you've got a lot to add on that.
No, I think that's, I think Elsie, you touched on a great point early on, in that everything that we do is really centered around taking care of our people and making sure that, they're able to take care of themselves and their families, as well as being able to continue to service the communities, right? We have a very important role in our communities in that we provide food. We're the source of food for a lot of the state of Texas, and we take that very seriously. And so not only do we have to be able to take care of our employees, but we have to be able to take care of the communities we service. And that kind of that was a difficult intersection at some points during COVID. So how do you continue to stay open and provide that critical service and those critical commodities while you take care of your employees and keep them safe and keep their families safe? And so I think, as Elsa talked about, a lot of the things that we implemented early on, such as the partitions in the store, the social distancing within the store. And I can tell you, social distancing within a grocery store is a challenge, right? It's a very big challenge. So you not only look at it from inside the store, you have to look at it from outside the store. So how do you meter people in? And some of these things that people were saying, we don't understand why we're doing this. We don't understand the concept behind it. It was in order to keep our people safe, in order to keep our customers safe, as well as continue to provide that critical service. So a lot of those things, and I thought it was interesting early on about, how does HEB emergency preparedness interface with our operations, right? So if you look at some of the things that we continue to do today within our stores, those are no longer part of the emergency preparedness playbook. They're part of the daily operations at HEB, the partition, face mask, social distancing. So those are things that we've evolved in as a company that are now just part of our daily operations.
Or right now you can't do demos, presumably right now, things of that nature.
That's right. And there's, there are still things we're choosing not to do because we still want to make sure that we can maintain those foundational things that we've put in place to keep our partners safe and our customers safe. So that's exactly right. Yeah.
What is, get the definition of being in community. What does it mean? How do you talk about food justice? And I've heard Mr. Butt talk about education and some of these topics, but what is, and you started to get there a little bit when you started talking about, there's a or that you're aware of, that you are a food provider, that last mile food provider to many homes across this state. Does a business, or does this particular business have a sense about food access and food justice and that knowledge, and what does that mean to you guys? Is that something that you talk about, as corporate executives, corporate leaders?
Absolutely. I think that the fact that HEB has stores across all communities, all types of communities, all demographics. We choose not to specialize in a particular neighborhood, a particular customer demographic. I've always thought, especially, in the years that I was a buyer, I always thought, gosh, it would be so much easier if we picked one small slice of customers and only focused on them, because we really are everything to everybody. And it's a crazy, I say this a lot when I, have conversations with like college students, and I always tell them, if you're to write out a business plan, this is the wackiest business plan you can possibly think of. Like, be great for every possible demographic. It's a challenge. That's a crazy, crazy thing to do. But to your point, that really starts from the Butt family, where, that it's hugely important for the family. Therefore, it does permeate all of our thinking. Every buyer across HEB, every store leader across HEB understands that they're serving the community. That means anybody that walks in their store, that is who their customer is. And so I think that's kind of the way that we show our dedication to that concept. That's really, it's an important way of how we show that.
Right. To that end, I think somebody's asking about that. On the flip side, that is, how does that affect even sourcing? Let's see real quick. Can you speak to background negotiations that go on with suppliers, maybe in times of crisis? Does HEB get priority over small stores? Or how does that happen? Is there an effort to divvy up what's available from the supply chain?
Yeah, so the one thing that I would say as it relates to our suppliers, and especially, obviously, you were talking about like it's early on, the crazy times of, the toilet paper and the bleach and those crazy times. I think, again, it was this idea of our core values and understanding really who we are, and having relationships with our suppliers has always been an incredibly important thing for us. We are not a transactional type of company. There are numerous stories across the company of the long-term, 10, 20, 30, 40 years of working together with certain suppliers. And I'm specifically saying not even necessarily the product that shows up in the store, but the suppliers that get our products into our stores, or the shipping containers that get the product from other countries into our stores. So we have these very strategic long-term relationships with different suppliers, so that when something like this happens, we can actually pick up the phone and actually call people and start having conversations with people. And I will tell you that early on, I had many conversations with suppliers asking about, kind of, how are you doing? Because that was always kind of the first question. How are you doing? How are the workers that are creating that food, the ones that are on in the plant, how are they doing? What can we do to help? And I know for sure, I'm sure that, Justin and his group also had these conversations, kind of helping other people to figure out how do they keep their people safe. So we had lots of conversations about, how are you doing? And then okay, let's talk about our supply chain issues that we're having. And what can we do to help you help us, right? We need product in our store. You're having a hard time getting it to us. How do we coordinate that? How do we get that product? And I will tell you, I heard over and over people saying, nobody else is doing this. No one else is reaching out and A, asking how we're doing, and B, giving us flexibility and saying, you know what, today you send us, 16 different flavors of pizza. Send us 2, just send us 2. And send us as much as you can, and right. We're okay with that. We'll figure it out on the back end. Don't worry about it. Just we are very flexible. Mm-hmm. We just need product for our customers. And those conversations apparently were not happening across the board. Wow. Yeah.
Well, that certainly changes their output, their structures, their shifts, their workers, their obligations, the way they can manage and structure their business to ensure that they work well. I mean, that changes everything for them when you can make and narrow those kinds of requests, right?
Right, exactly. But I think the key there is, it was the foundational, ongoing relationship in the good times.
Relationship
when it's the bad times, right? So I mean, it's just like, I always think about it like it's like a marriage or a friendship or anything, right? If you have the good stuff when it's good, and you have your core values and you know what's important to you, when things go bad, you just go back to those, hang on to them, and you'll get through it, right? And that's how a lot of what we did.
Oh my gosh, y'all, there are just way too many questions. Okay. Okay, let me find another one here. Well, actually, before I do that, I'm going to ask a quick question. Personal privilege. Where were you, I guess, for you guys in January of last year, maybe, when you had your oh crap moment, the real moment when you went, okay, this is really, really bad. This is a bad thing, and it's going to be a long-term bad thing. When you realize, you had a report that said something was going on, but when it really clicked in your brain, you said, okay, I'm going to go into another mode now. Do you recall where you were?
Yeah, I'll speak to me personally. So we started looking at the, the Wuhan virus in late December last year. And one of the great things about HEB is we've got our eyes and ears all across the globe. And so part of our job in emergency preparedness, and I think important, is to be able to look across the globe and see what's really impacting other retailers and other communities, and say, is there a correlation to what may happen with that community and what could happen in the state of Texas or at HEB or in the United States. And so, as you can imagine, there are things that happen every day across the globe that we look at, and some of them we pay attention to closer than others. And I think what we kept seeing is multiple reports of things happening around this virus. And so we really started paying attention to it. And then our global sourcing team reached out and say, hey, there's some potential impacts to how HEB may be affected from a import perspective. And we said, okay, from a business continuity perspective, let's look at this a little bit closer. Let's understand what our risks are and how can we mitigate those now. And that was late December, early January.
Right.
And I think the aha moment for me was somewhere in between hey, this may impact our import business and the products in HEB, that this may actually physically impact the United States and Texas and HEB from a emergency perspective. That was February 27th for me. I know exactly where I was, exactly what I was doing. And so February 26th, we were actually in Houston. We were given, we were actually doing some active shooter training in Houston in one of our stores. And the next day, we actually had our first run on toilet paper and our first run on product on February 27th. And that's whenever we activated our emergency operations center. So I remember it vividly to this day, and we're actually coming up on that anniversary as we speak. So it's been an amazing, incredible year, and I'm so proud of the company and the things that we've done. But I totally remember that to this day. Yeah. Probably till I die.
Well, but you have a good point, right? It was in, it's in your head, and it's knowledge, and it's business preparedness and business understanding. And then you have this other moment where you go, oh, okay. And it becomes something else, right? At that moment in time.
Yeah, we definitely switch gears from, hey, this may impact our imports, that this may severely impact how we operate and could affect the health of our customers and our partners. So let's actually move into reviewing action plans and how can we implement plans that we already had from years past, and how do we, update those for our business. So I think it's one of those things where, we're really blessed at HEB that we have the ability and the autonomy to actually activate our plans. And Elsa's already familiar with the plans, as well as many other people at HEB, so they understand how we operate. And I think we've been. You can look at this from a bad perspective or a good perspective, but we have lots of experience with disasters in the state of Texas. And we activate often, and we activate frequently to support our communities and our customers. So we actually have good experience on how to move quickly in those planning sessions. So,
Elsa, what about you? When you have your, Justin was nice. He said, aha. I said, oh, crap.
So, I guess I would say that really for me, it was a little bit more of an evolution, although when we kind of stand up, like officially, Justin's group, everybody knows, okay, game's on, something's different. Like, we just know that. Now, as he just alluded to, typically that means, oh, there's a hurricane coming. And we kind of all, it's like, okay, we all know generally it impacts a somewhat limited group within HEB, because obviously it's, if you live in Abilene, it's probably not going to affect you as much as if you live in Conroe, right? But this one obviously was the difference was, okay, we're now standing up kind of our emergency plans, but it's for the entire company. And that was the first time that I can remember it being for everybody. Everybody in the whole company is now aware of this plan, this action. So that immediately, we all knew there was something very different there. And then, honestly, I will tell you, just being very truthful, most of February, March, part of it, I almost can't even really remember. It was such a flurry. It was such a, 7 days a week. We were all working 7 days. All of us were working 7 days a week. There was at one point, I remember sitting down, it was like a Sunday evening, thinking, when was the last time that I didn't work? like I couldn't, it was
Yeah.
8 weeks. So, you know, it's like I almost really didn't even have time to kind of think about it. It was just jump in and start doing whatever you need to do to make this as good as you can.
Yeah, no, totally understandable. Let me grab someone's question. Brandy's asking about food and climate. Can you speak to efforts to label the source and impact of various foods and the efforts to ID and stock and promote plant-based products and meal options?
So on the plant-based thing, I can give you a little bit more background because that is something it's a project that I've been working on. And so there is definitely lots of activity around our product development. And so in certain categories, it's obviously a bigger deal than in others. But there is absolutely a kind of a coordinated, laser-focused effort around plant-based, in doing it in a way that is relevant to our customers. So, which, you know, in some cases it takes a little bit longer because we don't just take whatever somebody comes and brings to us. We want to make sure that it's product that is relevant to our customers, that is as accessible to the majority of our customers as possible. Which again, that just takes a lot more effort because we want to make sure that it can be accessible to a broader group of our customers. And you know, I've talked to plant-based suppliers, again, literally from all over the world, including actually one that is actually in Austin that is doing some. They are very, very, very technically savvy, science-based, doing some really cool things that I won't get into all the detail, but they are doing some pretty cool things in Austin, Texas right now around plant-based.
And you know, Austin, Texas is the awesome place for new food.
Exactly. Anyway, so yes, there is a lot of effort around that.
Another quick question. Were the supply chain challenges last year a bad thing or an opportunity for smaller and local brands at HEB? And it's from my friend Jim Dutton.
So absolutely was incredible for our small and local suppliers. The results for them, their sales have translated into something that in some cases has been transformative. You know, obviously when you're little and you double your business, that's a really big deal. You know, I have lots of stories of people who have hired folks. So, you know, the transformative nature of what happened last year when we had issues getting product from some of the bigger guys. And so when you go to the store, all of a sudden you see brands that you just never thought you've never thought about them before. You never even knew that they were there, which is awesome because now all of a sudden you're highlighting these smaller local, you know, our Quest for Texas best suppliers that we love dearly. You know, I would say across the board, they, you know, as terrible and awful as so much of this last year has been, and obviously for people who have physically been impacted, clearly, yes, it's been terrible. Yeah. However, you know, the reality is that there have been some positive that came out of it, specific to our local retailers. And going forward, it will also be something that is absolutely something that we are even more focused on. I mean, obviously we've always been focused on it, and we have an entire program around finding local suppliers.
Absolutely.
But even more so now.
Well, does that also apply to? I know, of course, Quest for Texas and the CPG programming, of course. But does that apply to farms and farmers? Is there a programming around farms? And somebody's asking, good Tiffany, another lovely friend, do you guys sponsor farms or any farm? I'm losing my words here. You know, vegetable and produce programming in the same way versus CPG?
So I guess I would say that we do it in a slightly different way because obviously CPG companies they just act differently than a commodity produce, right?
Yeah.
But right, so it is a little bit different. However, if you walk into our stores and you see signage all over the place of, we do specifically work with local farms and local farmers. And again, back to the relationships, in many cases, we've been working with the same farmer. He knows how much to plant because we basically just open ourselves up and say, let's have a very strategic long-term conversation about how much you need to plant, how much are we going to buy? We commit to, certain quantities.
Absolutely.
It's a very collaborative, strategic.
I would love to hear about that because I'm not familiar with that side. Of course, CPG, absolutely, but not our farm produce side. Mm-hmm. That'd be kind of good. I'm just trying to get through a couple of questions. I still have a couple of my own. As lovely as Sweeney, another friend. Justin, you talked about the time frame between realizing there was business work to do versus the personal impact of the virus. As Winnie's wondering, can you speak more into that transition of being aware in December of 19 and creating actions in spring of 2020? Can you speak about the connection and need for guidance from city and the state? Did you hear from the city and the state during that time frame, and did that affect any of your knowledge and work that you were doing that time frame?
So I think one of the blessings we have at HEB is our customers are very vocal, and our customers really drive a lot of our action. And so, we're blessed that all of our emergency response plans are based around a lot of our customer activity. And so one of the things that really drove us, I think, into action early on was seeing our customers start to purchase products specifically focused on the virus. So we started seeing a run on N95 masks. We started seeing a run on some other over-the-counter pharmaceuticals. We started seeing, and then we started seeing a run on water. Mm-hmm. Water is always the key commodity for us from an emergency perspective. So whenever we start seeing our customers buy water, we're always really perk up a little bit and say, okay, what's going on and what's driving these activities? And so some of those key commodities that started being purchased, that was really the trigger point for us. Okay. That said, okay, our customers are shopping differently. We got to get ahead of this. So we activated our emergency response plans on February 27th. And that's really the tipping point that moved us from we're thinking about how this could impact HEB to, okay, we are now moving into an active emergency plan.
Okay. Wow. So the answer to that question about the city and the state was actually no. But it's driven by by customer forces and market forces.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even with the hurricane where, we really moved quicker as well, just not because we're that much better or not because we're in tune more, but we have our customers who really help us, drive our activity. So, we're very blessed to have that heads up, honestly.
Yeah. So here's a question: between the knowledge you have from Hurricane Harvey versus what you've learned in the pandemic, what is something that you've learned differently about these two incidents, these two scenarios that you learned? You had lessons learned after Harvey, but what's different about this pandemic that you guys now take into your practice at HEB?
I can tell you, for me personally, a hurricane is a sprint. And so it is all hands on deck for a solid 7 to 21 to 28 days, right? Mm-hmm. Hurricane Harvey was obviously an extreme example. Hurricane Ike is an example of that, where we activated our EOC, hurricane made landfall. We dealt with the impacts of the hurricane, and then we went back to business. COVID has been a marathon, an ultra marathon, one that we have to meter ourselves on, because I know a lot. Elsa talked about hundreds and, thousands of HEB employees have worked daily, for the onset of this. And so it's one of those things we've got to make sure that we don't burn ourselves out on. It's one of those things we have to be prepared for the long term. So that's a big lesson learned for me.
Yeah. Elsa, were you going to say something?
Yeah. So I guess what I was going to say is that I think the difference here with this particular one, because it has been such a long ultra marathon, and because it just changed so much seemingly overnight. So we just had these changes kind of thrust upon us. So the cool thing is that we then took the opportunity to say, you know what, we have all these things changing anyway. Let's just take a look at all of our processes that we do today and see, is there some improvement? Is there some things that we can be doing differently? Since everything is blown up as it is, let's just go ahead and look at everything. So it's been a really great opportunity to kind of, in some cases, it's just fine tuning. In some cases, it's been, let's look at a totally different way of doing something. This is our chance. This is the opportunity, because it opened up that opportunity to really look at reinventing certain things if we needed to.
Exactly.
And so we've absolutely, we dove into that and said, let's do it. Let's look at every single thing we do and be very strategic about which ones we keep doing, which ones we tweak, which ones we let go. So that's kind of been the biggest difference, because something like that wholesale probably doesn't happen after a hurricane. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Have you, to that end, have you seen any practices, because so much has happened in Travis County, just in the way we're doing food access and come back to access and equity. Have you guys seen anything that you guys are taking into HEB now, maybe practices you've seen the community do or others do, that you guys are picking up and saying, yeah, we should probably, maybe we'll pick that up and integrate that? Have you guys seen anything in particular?
I mean, I think, the work that our public affairs department have done with community, I will tell you, I don't know a lot of the specifics, but I will tell you that just like what I was just describing, they're doing the same thing. So they're saying, are there different ways that we can be supportive of food banks or, other different, different community organizations that we play in? Are there different ways, or can we maybe go back one step to start trying to get to the root of the problem, rather than just putting and I don't want to say putting a Band-Aid, because obviously giving food to the food bank is not just a Band-Aid. It's awesome. But is there something that we can be doing to kind of start thinking about what causes people to go to the food bank in the first place? Right. Yeah. So, and obviously, there's also the balance between, doing that while, by the way, buying food, delivering food, putting food on the shelf, checking it out. I mean, so obviously there's a business to run. The cool thing is that HEB is not, I mean, we really aren't just a business. We really aren't. It's like it what you think of it from the outside, that's actually what it's like on the inside. And so, we do get to raise our hand and say, hey, can I try this crazy idea?
Yeah.
Sure, let's try it. It's definitely a blessing of a community-minded, privately owned company, for sure.
Yep. I totally understand and relate. I want to thank you too for taking time out of your day to come and talk to everybody. I know this is a conversation that many were excited to see and have. And then you guys know I really appreciated you guys coming to talk with me and everyone else. Folks here just have a great love for the company and you guys as leaders within the company and all the partners that work in HEB. We appreciate you guys being safe and ensuring your workers are safe and ensuring your customers are safe and still engaging with everybody. And just thank you guys for being with us today. Any last thoughts from you two to everybody as well? I'll give you guys the last word.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say thank you very much for not only for inviting us, but just for having the idea crazy idea to put something like this together, because Joyce is a little nuts.
Oh, probably. Yeah, thanks. That's an appropriate word.
That's right. But you know what? Some of the craziest conversations lead to something that's beautiful. So I thank you very much.
Thank you
for thinking about putting this together, and we look forward to the next one.
Cool. All right, we'll see you guys later.
Thank you, Joy.
All right. Bye,
Bye-bye,
guys.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Yes.
Hey, Sherry.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Okay, so just look for the live. Y'all are going on in 5 seconds.
Yep, Karen in.